Hi, my name is Jimmy Hall, and I teach voice at the University of North Florida's School of Music here in Jacksonville. This is my 10th year on the faculty of UNF, and I have had the privilege of being a part of every single Jacksonville Sings since its inception in 2011. I'm very pleased to be a part of this year's JaxSingsVirtual Week. As an applied voice professor, the way I spend most of my days is working one-on-one with students on their solo vocal repertoire. So I thought I would come to you today and give you all just a few pointers and steps as to how to learn a new piece, something that you've never studied before that you've just been given. So I've appropriately titled this segment, "So I've been assigned this song, now what?" The methods and steps that I discussed today can be applied to any type of music, not just your solo repertoire. This is absolutely applicable to your choral repertoire as well. But I hope it will be especially beneficial to those of you who participate in the FVA Solo and Ensemble Contest, or those of you who plan to participate in the college audition process this year. Before I begin, I just want to say there are a lot of different methods and styles of learning music. There is no one right or wrong way to go about doing that, but hopefully some of the ideas that I present today will be helpful to you and make your learning more effective and more efficient. So the first step that I tell most of my students to do is, once you've been assigned something, is to listen to a professional recording of the song. Now, I never would have said this when I began teaching 10 years ago. So my idea on this has changed a little bit. And the reason I would not have recommended this when I first started teaching was because I didn't want students to learn the notes and rhythms on a recording or from another performer. Neither did I want them to copy someone else's performance. So my idea is not that you'll learn your music by copying a professional. The idea is that you'll get an overall sense of what the end product can be. I find this to be a really big motivator. For myself as a singer, I love to listen to some of my favorite singers perform a piece that I have just picked up to learn. I find it quite inspirational, and it gives me an idea as to what this could possibly be. So that's the first thing that I tell students to do. Listen to that a couple of 3 times and then put it away. Then learn your music on your own. The second step is to do the written work before you learn a single pitch. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by the written work behind a piece? A few years ago, I formalized an aria song sheet that a packet of these rests outside my studio door on my bulletin board. And for all of my students, for every single song that they learn, they're required to fill out one of these sheets. And this is just background information on the piece of music itself. So things like, what's the title of the piece? Is it from a larger work, like an opera, like an oratorio, or a song cycle? Is it a piece within a piece? When was it written? And what musical era does that fall into? That's important. I'm not going to sing a Baroque piece the same way that I would a piece that was written during the Verismo period. Who's the composer? Who's the poet or the librettist? And relevant information about both of them. When did this piece fall into the composer's overall output? Was this at the beginning of her time? Was it at the end? Make sure that you have written in the IPA and word-for-word translations in your score. It says this will be graded, so clearly I'm very serious about that. IPA transcriptions and word-for-word translations in your score. Describe your overall approach to the musical style of the piece. Are there specific musical markings from the composer to which you should adhere? Mark those in a colored pencil. And then I talk a little bit about the dramatic intent with the piece. Who is singing? In other words, as the singer, who are you? Where are you? To whom are you singing? When is this song taking place? Who's on stage with you, if anyone? And what is your motivation? Or what is it that you want as the character? So I do every bit of this before I even look at one note of the piece of music. The third thing that I would say is also written work. I would write out the text in poetic form and speak it, just like we all learned, Romeo and Juliet in ninth grade English class. Memorize the poetry in poetic form, away from the music. If it's in a foreign language, make sure that you translate it word for word. That's very important. I often adjudicate competitions, and students have a really good idea of the general overall sense of what the song means if it's in a foreign language, but rarely do I hear connection to the text that is word for word specific. Many of the editions that we sing from provide a poetic translation. Poetic translations are great because they give us an English version of the song to sing. And they give us a general idea as to what the song is about. But we lack the specificity. Be sure that you do a word-for-word translation, because that will allow you to know what every single word means, and also which words are verbs, which words are articles, which verbs are prepositions. You don't want to accent a word that's not important, right? There are many wonderful online resources for word-for-word translations, or you can do it like I did when I was in college in the 1700s, when the internet was just up and running and there were no resources like this. We used dictionaries. We used a German dictionary, an Italian dictionary, and we looked up every single word, which is a wonderful exercise because then you're really learning verb conjugations and that sort of thing. So the next thing is providing an IPA transcription of the text. So I believe one of my colleagues this week is talking about the power of IPA. So I won't go into that too much, other than an IPA transcription is very, very important in the text, even and especially if it's in English. I always tease with my students that I'm from Texas, so I don't talk, right? So learning to IPA English was very, very important for me. There's a wonderful resource that I recommend. It's called a Pronouncing Dictionary of American English. And it's eye-opening as to how many things we mispronounce depending on what region of the country we're from. So IPA everything, translate everything. And now we are ready to go to the score. So the first thing I recommend that you do as a singer is to chant the rhythm, either on a neutral syllable or, because you've already learned the text in poetic form, to actually just chant the rhythm with the text. Most good composers are going to set the text as it was in poetic form. So this will be a very, very easy step for you. The next thing then I suggest is to sing the pitches on a neutral syllable. I'm a big fan of the U or E, and I'm a sucker for a closed vowel, while paying attention to your technique. Be very careful about your alignment. You're establishing good habits now, even though you're just singing on a neutral syllable. If you have piano facility, this is a great time to plunk out your notes, but don't rely on that. I know a lot of folks use solfege, and that's great. That's a wonderful way of getting through the pitches as well. So you've combined the pitches and the rhythm. And then the next thing I would do is to sing the text, but only using the vowels. So in other words, remove the consonants from each word and sing vowel to vowel. This will help with your legato, and it's just that in-between step from learning the pitches and then putting the words entirely with them. And then finally, sing through the text on the pitches. That's a lot of steps just to get to the final sing through of the song. But I find that so often, and I'm guilty of this, we jump right to that step. And if we do all of these things prior to that, we save ourselves a lot of headaches and heartaches too sometimes. And now that we're at this point, now is when the fun can actually begin. Now is when we can talk about dramatic interpretation, and now is the point at which you take the piece of music to your teacher. I'm sure all of you have heard voice teachers say before, I am not here to teach you your notes and rhythms. I am here to help you put this together and make music. And this is what happens now. So I encourage every single student, every singer, to mark their score like they're a conductor. If you've ever seen a conductor's score, it's crazy with all of the markings, and it's this way and it's this way, and there's colored pencils. I'm a big fan of colored pencils. Your score as a singer should have the IPA in there. It should have the text and translations. I like a colored pencil, one color for dynamics and musical markings, and then I actually use a separate color pencil for lessons that I have with my teacher. For instance, I mark everything in red. That way, when I go home, I know this is something that was brought up in my lesson that I either need to fix or just pay close attention to. Highlighting the action verbs is also very important, or the peaks of phrases. You know, I'm thinking of Mozart's one of Cherubino's aria from Mozart's Marriage of Figaro. Every time Cherubino has a word desire, it's on this half step that just that pokes at that word desire. If you don't know what that word means, then that's completely missed, and that's not good. So we want to be sure that we know what every single word is, and we're adhering to that in the music. Dramatic interpretation. Singers are often worried about what to do, especially in recital format, on stage. How do I act this piece? And again, I say go to the score. A good composer is going to do all the work for you. My teacher used to say that the composer is the architect, the score is the blueprint, and we just build what's there. So even with dramatic interpretation, it should all come from the text and from the music. So often we see singers' scores and they just have the vocal line highlighted. As a singer, you should know everything that's on that page. So if you're singing with piano, know what the piano is doing. One song that comes to mind that many high school students sing at competitions is the Crucifixion by Samuel Barber. And if you aren't aware of what the piano is doing, and for instance, you're just starting to emote and come to life on the first line is at the cry of the first bird. But prior to that, in the piano, Mr. Barber gives a couple of bird calls. If you're not paying attention, if you don't know what the piano is doing, then you completely miss that, and the audience completely misses it. And it's there for you as an actor to use. So again, it all comes directly from the score. I encourage you to listen, and listen more to professional singers. And once you have something learned and you're ready to get up and perform it as much as you possibly can. Learn by doing. Perform it for your friends, perform it for your family, perform it for your teachers. The more you're able to get up and practice your craft, the better you'll be. So this is just a few ideas as to how to help you learn a brand new piece that you've never worked with before. Thank you for joining me today, and I wish you all very, very well. Thanks.